It is with a deep sense of pride and pleasure that my wife and I join you here today as we witness Canadians coming together in a renewed sense of national pride, unity, and hope.
I'm Candice Malcolm, and this is the Candice Malcolm Show. Wow, what a news week we are in. We're going to get to it all. This is going to be a great episode. So we saw King Charles. He's the King of Canada, folks. When he's in Canada, he's our king. He's the King of Canada. Here is what his throne speech looked like today.
Many Canadians are feeling anxious and worried about the drastically changing world around them. Fundamental change is always unsettling. Yet this moment is also an incredible opportunity, an opportunity for renewal, an opportunity to think big and to act bigger, an opportunity for Canada to embark on the largest transformation of its economy since the Second World War.
Love him or hate him, it was quite a spectacle in Ottawa to have the king. We haven't seen that happen in Canada in decades. The king, usually it's the Governor General that reads the throne speech, but Mark Carney pulling out all the stops, trying to make a flash, trying to distract, I think, from the entire spectacle of him coming in and taking over as Prime Minister. Here is the scene and what it looked like when King Charles and Queen Camilla were arriving in Ottawa for the royal visit. You know, for all these folks talk about climate change and the environment, that kind of goes all out the window when it comes to their own comfort and security, doesn't it? Look at that motor car. Look at the private jet that they flew on over and living the high life out there. And this was the scene shortly earlier. You have a bunch of men out there fixing the potholes in Ottawa. So you would hate for the king to see the total disrepair of Canada's streets. So they are out there frantically trying to make the city look good for the royal visit. Reminds me of what was happening in California. Governor Newsom completely got rid of San Francisco's homeless population for President Xi Jinping of China's visit. And then as soon as the Chi-Coms left, the homeless came back and took over San Francisco again. So that's what it's looking like out there in Ottawa. And here you can see King Charles being met by an audience. Mark Nixon points out, listen as you hear. He says, "Thank you for being here. King Charles is treated like he's here to save us from a Trump-led annexation."
We're so proud of him. We're so proud. And we can live up to your expectations.
Thank you for being here. Thank you so much.
Very important to support you. So lovely to see you.
So King Charles being treated like he's a godsend here to save us from Trump. I don't think so, folks. I think it's all a distraction. And look what happened with our Governor General. What an absolute embarrassment. So Governor General Mary Simon addresses King Charles as a foreign monarch. Okay, this is what she wrote on X before it was deleted because it is factually incorrect. This is what the X post says. Governor General Simon was honored to have an audience with His Majesty King Charles III at Rideau Hall as part of their Majesty's royal visit to Canada. These ongoing conversations deepen the meaningful bond between our nations. What? Does whoever write the X posts or the social media posts in the Governor General's office even understand their office? Do they understand what Canada's government structure is? Let me just remind everyone that it isn't a meaningful bond between our two nations, right? Canada is part of the crown. King Charles is our head of state. There's no two nations here. It's just one nation. That's Canada, okay? And the fact that the people working in the Governor General's office don't even know this, perhaps the Governor General himself doesn't even know this, is an absolute embarrassment for Canada. Look, the Liberals are the one that tried to scrub our country of our traditions, of our institutions. They wanted to create a new Canada. They wanted to get rid of all of the history behind Canada as a part of the United Kingdom and as a colony and then as an independent country still under the crown. And now it's like they don't even know our own history anymore because they've scrubbed it from the book. So embarrassing that our Governor General doesn't know who the king is. And so as Guy and Bexty, my co-founder at Juno News, wrote an email yesterday, Our Governor General doesn't know who the king is, and Mark Carney just took power. You can't make this up, he says. On the same day King Charles III arrived in Ottawa to deliver Canada's speech from the throne, our own Governor General called him a foreign monarch. Yes, the woman tasked with upholding our Constitution just implied that the King of Canada was a foreigner. In a now infamous tweet, Mary Simon said the royal visit was about deepening the bonds between our nations, complete with a Canada and UK flag side by side. One problem, King Charles isn't a foreign dignitary. He's our head of state. This is grade level civics, and she blew it. The purple hair should have clued everyone in that she was unqualified for the job. Now, let's talk about the other clueless elite who took center stage this week. Mark Carney is now Prime Minister. But don't let that fresh suit fool you. This isn't a reset, it's a rerun. Trudeau's policies, Trudeau's insiders, Trudeau's smug disregard for ordinary Canadians, all of it is back. Carney kicked things off by firing disgraced Speaker Greg Fergus, a man best known for showing up to Liberal fundraisers in his speaker robes and censoring MPs he didn't like. But rather than appoint someone impartial, Carney installs Francis Scarpaleggia, a 21-year Liberal caucus loyalist who's never had an independent thought in his life. Royal pageantry, zero solutions. Carney's first act as PM turned Parliament into a stage for King Charles III, not to educate the public, not to govern, but to distract. The king delivered the speech from the throne, the first time a reigning monarch has done so in Canada since 1977. The press swooned, Carney grinned, but Canadians got nothing. While elites exchanged small talk and cocktail toasts, working families were left to wonder how they'll afford next month's rent. This is Trudeau's playbook: carbon taxes, housing lies, zero accountability. Carney's throne speech was a carefully packaged lie, writes Cian Bexty. It promised relief, but delivered more of the same. A fake tax cut with no clear plan to pay for it. A housing strategy that promises more supply, but won't touch prices. A climate agenda still powered by Trudeau's infamous Bill C-69, the No More Pipelines Act. Carney claims to be different, but his actions prove he's not. He's Trudeau without the drama, but just as dangerous. We're not here to applaud, we're here to expose. Legacy media won't touch this. They won't mock Simon for bungling the basics of her job. They won't call out the new speaker for being one of the most partisan members of the House. And they certainly won't hold Carney accountable as he drags Trudeau's failed regime back from the dead. Well, Juno News will. We exist for one reason: to expose the lie, the spin, and the utter incompetence of our ruling class. And if you're here with us right now, you are part of the mission. So thank you for being here. All right, folks, let's do a comment section question of the day. Do you think it's time to get rid of the monarchy? I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Let me know in the comment section down below. My personal thoughts on this is I like our tradition. I like our history. You wouldn't create a monarchy if you were starting from scratch, but the fact that we've had one in place for hundreds of years and has served us well is a pretty good reason. And yet I will say, seeing King Charles in Ottawa made me sick to my stomach. I don't like it. I don't like the pageantry. I don't really like the royal family anymore. I don't like what they stand for these days. And it reminds me of what Preston Manning had to say. He said that there is no left and there's no right anymore. So the idea in Canada used to be that conservatives and the political right were the ones that were protecting the monarchy. They believed in our British tradition and they wanted to play up our ties to the UK, whereas liberals and progressives wanted to create a new utopia Canada with no history. And I kind of agree with Preston Manning that it's not about left or right anymore. It's about establishment versus the people. So on the one hand, you have the establishment like Mark Carney, the elites, the experts, and the globalists, whatever you want to call them. On the other hand, you have the people. Populism, the grassroots politics, the people of Canada. Put another way, check out this graphic that was making the round on X. I think this is brilliant. So you can see sort of two archetypes of Canadians. On the left, they call him the Albertan. On the right, you have the Canadians. So let me just read. This is what the Albertan believes. Core belief: freedom over fear. Economic identity: the entrepreneur, the oil worker, the trades. Attitude towards government: get out of the way. Cultural values: family, grit, and ownership. Preferred labor: someone who builds. Lifestyle: ranching, outdoors, hard work. Votes for self-government. I'll take risk over regulation. My future isn't Ottawa's to manage. And then contrast with what they show as the Canadian. The core belief is safety over freedom. We saw a lot of that during COVID. Economic identity, someone who works in the public sector, who's a consultant, and who's an activist. Attitude towards government is take care of me. Cultural values are compliance and entitlement. Preferred leader, someone who bans, yeah, it sounds pretty familiar. The lifestyle, they live in a condo, they use mass transit, and they have some kind of an HR job, and they vote for bigger government. Their mantra is let the government handle it. That's what it's there for. And so I think you could also imagine this a different way. Bruce Party, who is a law professor at Queen's, he was on my show the other week, and he described the values that he thinks of when he thinks of an independent Albertan, the values that are contrasted in our two parties and that are, the fight for our country's soul. On the one hand, you have globalist values. On the other hand, you have Canadian values. So I would take this graphic from X and I would say, rather than calling him the Albertan, call him the Canadian and call the other guy the globalist, because that's really what's at stake. And so when I see the monarchy, when I see Mark Carney, again, I just think globalists, that they're not here for the little guy. They're not here for the everyday Canadian. Okay, so let's get back to the new Speaker of the House. Liberal MP Francis Scarpaleggia was elected as a Speaker, as is tradition. I like this tradition, longstanding tradition. The party leaders, which right now is Mark Carney and Andrew Scheer, because recall that Pierre Poilievre didn't get elected into the House, and so Andrew Scheer was named the interim leader until that by-election happens and Pierre Poilievre can return back to seat. So you had Andrew Scheer, Mark Carney here dragging the new Speaker into the chair. It's always a lot of fun to see that. And again, they're just sort of playing up this idea that nobody wants to be the Speaker. Nobody wants to be the Speaker. And so the two House leaders have to physically drag him and put them in there, just having a bit of fun in Ottawa. One of those sort of bipartisan traditions where everyone is on the same team. So let's go to Mark Carney's speech. Mark Carney welcomed the new Speaker by saying that he will make mistakes, but he reminds us that we are an Athenian democracy and that we are Athens, and he contrasts that with the Americans, who he says are Rome. Let's play that clip.
I have much to learn from the members of this great house. I will make mistakes. I have no doubt that you will call them out for good reason. Because this house has rules, it has traditions, and it's on those traditions that our Athenian democracy is founded. Yes, we are Athens. They are Rome.
Guy's obsessed with the Americans. Like every aspect of his job, he's just always juxtaposing himself with Trump, with Americans. Trump lives rent-free in that guy's head. Here is interim opposition leader Andrew Scheer welcoming Mark Carney to the House of Commons, but reminding him of how important the job is and how every minor decision that they make will have a drastic impact on the lives of Canadians, and to do so with caution. Let's play that clip.
In all seriousness, though, Mr. Speaker, you are not the Commissioner of Parliament, you are the servant of the House, and that is an important dynamic. You are held accountable by the members, and each of us are accountable to our voters. Debates should be passionate. They should be lively. The lives of Canadians are changed by the decisions we make, and so it is normal that members get enthusiastic and fiery. When the stakes are so high, often the best thing you can do is allow the players to play a little bit. This is where the government is held to account. They have an enormous amount of power, and we, parliamentarians, must provide ruthless scrutiny on every dollar taken out of their pockets, every infringement on their liberties, and every single decision this government makes.
So Mark Carney is supposed to be the servant of Canadians, but one of the first things that he announced was that he won't be taking question period. He won't be taking questions like his predecessor, Justin Trudeau did. So here we have from CTV, Mark Carney won't continue the question period tradition Justin Trudeau began. Former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau made it his practice to answer all questions in the House on Wednesdays, a gesture meant to improve accountability within the chamber. Well, Mark Carney's not going to do that. I'm going to read a little bit from a Dan Knight, political commentator. This guy always has the best takes. This is what he writes. The story broke through Canadian press earlier today. Mark Carney, Canada's newly installed Prime Minister, will not be continuing the weekly question period tradition started by Justin Trudeau in 2017. 2018. You may remember that practice. Every Wednesday, Trudeau showed up in the House of Commons to take every single question from any member of Parliament who wished to grill him. Well, that's over now. Mark Carney isn't interested. The public doesn't get that transparency anymore, and that tells you everything you need to know. Now, to be perfectly clear, this isn't technically illegal. It doesn't violate parliamentary rules, but that's not the point. Carney's decision, confirmed by a source in his own office, is entirely political. He goes on to say, the media, as usual, is covering it like it's a non-issue. They're repeating lines about procedural norms and brushing off critics as partisan. But remember, Justin Trudeau, for all his arrogance, at least made a show of being answerable. Carney won't even give you that. He doesn't feel he has to. So ask yourself, if this is how he behaves in his first week on the job, cloaked in silence, dodging scrutiny, and governing behind the velvet rope, what else is coming? So here's the truth. Mark Carney is not here to serve Canadians. He's here to protect a ruling class that sees public scrutiny as an obstacle, not a requirement. And that makes him more dangerous than Trudeau ever was, because he knows how to gut democracy quietly, without the drama, without the selfies, without the headlines. Just a cold precision of a central banker removing every last check on his power. And if Canadians don't call it out now, they won't get a chance to later. Exactly right. Dan Knight. Now, let me just say this about Mark Carney. I'm not going to say a lot of positive things about him, but this clip is everything. So there you see Melanie Joly, one of the most annoying cabinet ministers from the Trudeau government. For some reason, Mark Carney put her in cabinet. She goes up to try to talk to him, and you could just see subtly the arm. Go away. Shoo. Go away. Go away, Melanie Joly. You're not needed. You're just annoying everybody. Okay, last story I want to cover here is that Alberta has decided to ban perverted groomer books, good for Alberta Premier Danielle Smith. So here is what she had to say on X. Albertans deserve to know what's really being shown to children in some of our K-9 schools, kindergarten, 4 and 5-year-olds. I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, and these disgusting pornographic books, I don't want them anywhere near children. So we just keep reading. This isn't about banning books. This is about protecting kids from graphic, sexually explicit content that has no place in our classrooms. Parents are right to be upset, as many of our kids are being exposed to age-inappropriate material that strips away their innocence at far too young an age. We're drawing a line. Review the content for yourself, but please know it's graphic and not suitable for minors. Here's Cam Bexley breaking after finding schools hosting pornographic material in classrooms. Alberta Smith is cracking down and banning the material where kids have access to it. I can't even show you the clips here on YouTube, folks. It is too graphic. YouTube will ban this video if I show it to you. So head on over to junonews.com. We've got them there. Let me just tell you, it's disgusting. This kind of stuff has no place anywhere near children. Good on Danielle Smith for cracking down on this. And yet, as could be expected, this is how the legacy media is covering it. So here's a Globe and Mail. Alberta to hold public consultation on what books should be banned from school libraries. So they're painting this as like right-wing bigots and homophobes banning books. The right is banning books, they say. Of course, it's not true. They're protecting children from seeing disgusting pornography. Here is deranged Jan Arden. She writes, Alberta to hold consultation on which books should be banned. What the F is going on? Well, Jan Arden, why don't you take a look at the books that they're talking about and tell me if you think it's appropriate for 5 and 6-year-old children to be reading them. I don't think so. A couple more posts here. This is a journalist, Sean Amato, says, looks like Alberta is going to be banning some books. Press conference with the minister at 11. Frank Walk on X writes, fascist BS. Do these people even read? Come on, Alberta used to have one of the best education systems in the world. Alberta changing rules to ensure age-appropriate books in school. I don't want children to see pornography. I don't want them getting groomed by perverts, okay? Good. This stuff shouldn't be in Alberta's school. Final one. New Alberta's government has appointed itself the arbiter of who can read which books at which age. Make no mistake about it. This will only lead to more censorship. Oh, look, someone on the left finally cares about censorship. So when it's Justin Trudeau and he's trying to censor the internet, when it's the CBC or when it's any of the social media giants trying to shut down dissenting voices, the left is totally silent. But when the Premier of Alberta wants to ban pornography for children, then all of a sudden they care about censorship. All right, folks, that's all the time we have for today. We'll be back again tomorrow with all the news. I'm Candice Malcolm. This is the Candice Malcolm Show. Thank you and God bless.
You're watching Juno News, Canada's fastest growing independent news network. Our team works day and night to bring you nationwide coverage of the issues that matter honest reporting of the stories that put Canadians first. From far and wide, Juno is doing the work to turn the dial in the right direction, bringing you the news from the field and in the studio. Wherever it takes us, we get the job done. For you, for Canada. Subscribe today and help us replace the CBC. Go to junonews.com to join the fight.